Rama, Rama, Hari, 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 Rama, 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 Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Hari, Rama, Rama, Hari, 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 Rama, Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Rama, Hari, Rama, Hare Krishna, Rama, Rama, Hari, Hari Bol. Segi Hari Bol. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to everyone. Thank you for taking interest. And we are continuing on with Vaishnava Etiquette. Having said that, we only have another 2 weeks. So, because then we got to start Bhakti Vaibhava. So in other words, we got to move on a bit, which is okay because, you know, some of the very important things we've been through in some detail. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarne Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Tarubias Cha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Devotees, we are up to, we're still in part 2, and we're up to, well, what is it? It's general etiquette in the temple, isn't it? That's what it's called, etiquette within the temple. And we have reached section F, dress and appearance, which is another important subject, actually. So let's have a look. Let's read through all these different points made because they're pretty good. They're pretty good generally. All right, so here we go. A devotee's clothing must be simple, clean, and distinctive, so as to remind people of Krishna. Distinctive, I'm not exactly sure the idea there, but simple and clean, that's a fact. And now talking about congregational devotees, when coming to the temple, particularly for the morning program, festivals, and on Sundays, devotees should dress as follows. Men, dhoti and kurta. Women, sari, head covered in the presence of men. You know, some would debate that, but, you know, I remember back in the good old days, back in the good old days, the ladies all wore saris. Wore their saris over their heads. Really. And when you go to India next, which I'm sure you'll all get the opportunity, particularly around Vrindavan, you'll see the married ladies more like from the farming community and the villages, They all wear their saris over their heads and like right down, just totally covering, right? Yes. So I'm not going to get into the whys and wherefores, but it's definitely the extra length of sari. It's good for ladies to wear it over the head. It's very nice. It's very cultured. Other clothing must be avoided except in compelling circumstances or where definitely required for preaching. You know, in some places, including here a bit, at least amongst the congregation for sure, not as much as in some other places. Devotees, congregational devotees, come to the temple in non-devotional clothes, pants and shirt. And I mean, it's one thing if you're dropping by while you're working, but, particularly like Sunday festivals, it's really best to wear devotional clothing because, sometimes, we'll talk about it shortly. Sometimes you have to dress, you have to sort of go undercover. Yeah. Sometimes you have to do that. Anyway, we'll talk about that just in a few minutes. So that some people or people don't recognize that you're one of the dreaded Hare Krishnas. Wow. The dangerous Hare Krishnas. But if we come in non-devotional clothes, you never know. Krishna might not recognize us. We want others not to recognize us as devotees. Krishna might not recognize us. So, point C, for both men and women, clothing should be simple and not fashionable and opulent. Yet the clothes must be neat and presentable. Unnecessary items like perfumes and various forms of cosmetics and makeup should be avoided. On the whole, that's definitely true. Simplicity in dress is very important for a Vaishnava, whether in the temple or outside. Having said that, Srila Prabhupada not just permitted but encouraged that ladies should have nice, kind of colorful saris and a certain amount of jewelry, not, going overboard, but a certain amount of jewelry and things like this, as it encourages them in their Krishna consciousness. So, right, particularly for morning programs and for all temple programs in general, fresh clothes must be worn. This is very important. The previous day's clothes must not be worn. I checked in Hari Bhakti Vilas what Sanatana Goswami says about that. And what he says is the following, and it is important, that cotton clothes should be changed at least every day. If you're going on the altar, like in the afternoon, then we assume you would have to put on fresh cotton clothes in the afternoon also. But in terms of just generally wearing clothes, 1 day is the limit, except for silk. As long as silk is not worn in a very fundamentally contaminated place like toilets particularly. As long as silk is not worn in such places, then you can wear silk for 2 days. You can wear silk for 3 days. Yeah, some sort of period of time like that. On the altar you can. I mean, the body should be clean, obviously, but the clothing, silk, is much more pure and free from the tendency to become contaminated than cotton. Of course, in the days of Sanatana Goswami, when he wrote Hari Bhakti Vilas, they did not have plastic clothes, polyester and these types of clothes. So he doesn't comment on that. But I would say in general, 1 day is the maximum. Yes, cause, and we're going to be going on to this sooner or later, cleanliness is very important. Hygiene, cleanliness for devotees. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And point E, Lord Chaitanya said that a Vaishnava is one who, when seen, reminds one of Krishna. Hence, all devotees must be particular in regard to the following, which mark one as a Vaishnava, which goes on to tilak and so on, which we'll go on to shortly. But I just want to look at a couple of specific points in regard to clothes as such. So there are, and I mean it's sort of alluded to in what we read a little bit, but sometimes in some places it may not be a good idea to dress as a Vaishnava. In some places it might possibly be dangerous, but at least, like if you ever fly into Qatar, Doha, don't wear devotee clothes and tilak, because they will ship you out on the next flight out back to wherever you came from. Believe me, my gosh. Yeah. So even just generally in the Middle East, what devotees do, and I've spent time there, what we do is, we go every evening, we do house programs, namahatas in people's houses. And we go wearing Western dress. And we get there and we change in the place into devotional dress, everybody. And then when the program finishes, everybody changes back into Western dress. Because, with respect, they are Muslim governments. And they are, not all of them, but some of them, are really heavy Muslim governments. So yes, even they bought for me a Muslim robe. You just pull it over your head and it covers your whole body from, shoulders to feet. I forget what they call that. Then I was able to wear my devotee clothes and just pulled the thing off, and there we were. Yes. But anyway, it's like that. And Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons of the present age. As soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments with beads on his neck and tilak on his forehead, they're immediately irritated. They criticize the Vaishnavas by sarcastically saying Hare Krishna. And some people also chant Hare Krishna sincerely. In either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, whether one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it will have its effect. The Vaishnavas are pleased when the demons chant Hare Krishna, because this shows that the Hare Krishna movement is taking ground. Another place where when you enter and leave, you must not wear devotee clothes is Singapore. Oh yeah, got to be undercover. 007. Yeah. So some places are like that. It's not a Muslim place, Singapore. It's just a materialistic place. Yeah. Right. So let's now have a look at tilak. And there's a little bit, there's just a couple of sentences here, and then we'll go to the appendix. But let's just have a look at what is stated here. One should always decorate the body with tilak at 12 places after taking a bath. A person who's not chanting the holy name and not following the regulative principles must not wear tilak, particularly outside the temple. Anyway, I don't know about that. That's, they're Indian devotees, and anyway, it's not, in some countries, the devotees have festivals, and particularly for the ladies, they have like a tent where the ladies, just whoever, the people, the visitors, can put on a sari and wear tilak. And they like it. They like it. And some of the men, not so many, but some, put on a dhoti and kurta and tilak. So this point, I don't take seriously. As I've said a few times, there are a few points here and there, which I just didn't have the time to go through and, really see what should be adapted or modified. Okay, so here we go. Now we've gone on to pages at 34. This is the appendix about tilak. Why they separated it from the main part, I don't know, but anyway. So let's have a look. This is interesting here. After putting on clean cloth, sit on a purified asan, preferably a kusha grass mat, haribol, and apply urdhva pundra or Vaishnava tilak on 12 parts of the body. You should not apply tilak in the bathroom unless you do. It is not terminal, like letting non-devotees wear tilak doesn't mean you're going to be struck down by lightning or, turn into a pumpkin at midnight, something of that sort. Tilak, but it is better to apply it outside. Tilak refers to marks placed on the body using various substances. Urdhva Pundra refers to the 2 vertical lines placed on the forehead and other parts of the body to indicate surrender to Krishna. Yeah, we normally use Gopi Chandan. I'm sure you're all basically familiar with that, sort of yellowish color, creamy, yellowish something. Some devotees use clay from Radhakund, which sometimes is not from Radhakund, but if you know the local people. So anyway, when I joined, there was no tilak. There were no beads. We just had to buy beads in the bead shop down Oxford Street. Just some beads, and make up our own sets of japa beads and neck beads. So, and we used to use what is called fuller's earth, which is a modeling, it's like a modeling clay sort of thing. So, Padma Purana, Yajna Purana state that Urdhva Pundra symbolizes the lotus feet of Vishnu. The 12 parts of the body on which we place the Urdhva Pundra marks are not arbitrary points. They're sensitive points that easily absorb the spiritual energy generated by reciting the names of Vishnu and mentally placing the Lord in these positions. If a devotee applies the marks of the Lord and chants his name, the Lord becomes pleased and resides with him. In this way, the material body becomes a sanctified temple of the Lord. Well, I can just mention that these marks, and if mine is still recognizable, but you know what I mean. These, which is not really mentioned here so much, not directly, I think. These are standard markings for a temple of Vishnu. And therefore, on the main dome, what do you see? You see tilak, the mark of tilak. So it shows that this is a temple. So Krishna is living within our bodies. So our bodies are temples. Therefore we mark our bodies as temples of the Supreme Lord. I mean, ultimately that's what it really comes down to. Brahmanda Purana states that a devotee who applies his tilak with great care while looking in a mirror or looking at his reflection in water goes to the Lord's supreme abode. I remember when we were doing Padayatra in England, we had, unlike in Berry Place Temple, if you remember, I've described in Berry Place Temple, there was only, for the men, there was only one mirror. And the mirror was approximately that size for about 50 men. No kidding. And either above or below the mirror, there was a prominent sign. Mirror is Maya. We were stalwarts, I tell you what, in those days. But when we were on Padayatra, there were no mirrors at all. So we just had to guess. And after a while, you sort of get it. Sort of. Yeah, it's part of the fun. Okay. By applying tilak on these places and reciting Vishnu's names, one sanctifies and dedicates the body to the Lord's service. That's true, but the main thing is that the markings indicate this is a temple. The Hari Bhakti Vilas mentions that the Urdhva Pundra tilak may vary in shape, color, and material according to a devotee's sampradaya, but other features are shared. It should not be crooked, uneven, unscented, dirty, or bad smelling. On the forehead, the center position between the two lines should be open from the eyebrows to the hairline, but should be joined at the bottom. The solid portion, because this is the footprint of the Lord, and on the nose, the sort of leaf shape, this is Tulsi. The solid portion, Tulsi, may extend 3/4 of the way down the nose, or something like that. While applying tilak, 2 vertical lines, which represent the lotus feet of the Lord, are drawn first, then the Tulsi leaf is drawn. Lord Vishnu is said to reside in the central portion, while Brahma resides on the left and Shiva on the right. Okay. I've not heard that before, but anyway, all right. Srila Prabhupada advised devotees in New York to try to avoid spilling liquid gopi chandan while mixing it in the palm of the hand. Do not waste it, it is precious. If it has fallen on the ground, immediately clear the area. So then we chant certain mantras. Now here we've got 2 sets of mantras. One is at the bottom of page 35. And this is generally for when you are getting your tilak together. If you make it up in your hand, then you would chant mantras A. But otherwise, the main mantras are on the next page, and there they are, with a picture of a Vaishnav with the tilak markings done very nicely. So there are different ways of doing this. I mean, ways means orders. But generally we would do the forehead first. We do the forehead first, then the belly, then the chest, then the throat, then the right side of the belly, and then you can either do the left side of the belly, the left arm, the left shoulder, the upper back, the lower back, and then go to the right arm and right shoulder. Or you can do it as listed out there. Forehead, belly, chest, throat, right side of belly, right arm, right shoulder, left side of the belly, left arm, left shoulder, upper back, lower back. Yeah. The main thing is to get the right mantra in the right place, really. Okay, so a few little comments on all of this. Let's have a look. Yeah, so the idea is that the different forms of the Lord mentioned in the different mantras, or little, very briefly, Om Keshavaya Namaha, etc., that the different forms of the Lord mentioned in relation to the different parts of the body we apply tilak to will protect those parts of the body. And here's a little quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 6, verse 20, Prabhupada says, sometimes when Krishna had been in danger, Mother Yashoda would chant the tilak mantras, so the Supreme Lord would protect the different parts of Krishna's body, because in subtle forms, these different forms of the Lord are sort of residing or presiding over the particular parts of the body. Right, so the child was thoroughly washed with cow urine and then smeared with the dust raised by the movements of the cows. Then different names of the Lord were applied with cow dung on 12 different parts of his body, beginning with the forehead, as done in applying tilak. In this way, the child was given protection. Hare Krishna. Just say, it's bona fide. Mother Yashoda did it. So we're invoking the protection of the Lord in those different places. Here's another quote from Prabhupada. But we must have our position. Tilak is our position. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's stricture. He would not see a person's face if there was no tilak. He used to say, it is cremation ground. Tilak must be there. As they look at their neighbor's tilak. Do I still have any? Anyway, yeah. So, and then another quote from Prabhupada. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when his students used to come without tilak, so he refused to see his face. He refused to see his face. He said, it is crematory ground. So it really is important. You know, even if we're going out undercover for some special business or something, like if you're flying to Qatar, it's a good idea to put tilak on with water. Yeah. And this is something I picked up from somewhere. Tilak is sometimes called the ornamentation of the spirit soul, the decoration made by applying wet clay mixture marks the body as a temple of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. So there you go, devotees, some thoughts about tilak. Let us go back in our manual, back to about page 6 or 7 or whatever it is. And we have here, page 7, men, brahmacharis and sannyasis must shave their heads once a week and keep shikha. Once a week is a good discipline. Usually Prabhupada would shave his head every week or fortnight. Grihastas may do the same. However, according to their service, Grihastas may keep their hair short and neat, and if possible, a small shikha. Now, what sort of size shikha? Well, there you see a little picture. Although there seems to be no shastric injunctions regarding the size of the shikha, Gaudiya Vaishnavas traditionally keep the shikha about the size of a calf's hoof print, approximately 1.5 inches, 5 or 6 centimeters or something. And actually Prabhupada mentions this. You can see there's a little quotation on the left under the picture. Gaudiya Vaishnav Sikha is 1.5 inches across, no bigger. Bigger Sikha means another sampradaya, and they have to be knotted. So the Sikha may be any length, but it should be kept tightly knotted and only untied when you're washing, cleaning, or oiling it. And you know, when you go to sleep, you should untie your Sikha. Don't ask me where they got that from. But, you know, I'm not aware of that being correct. Since an untied Sikha is a sign of death, that's true. An untied Sikha indicates that there's death around. So we should always keep, I mean, if you've got a Sikha which is long enough, you should always keep it tied. So, and then while tying your Sikha after bathing, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, or if initiated with Gayatri mantras, silently chant Brahma Gayatri. I don't know about that. The Sikha should not be braided. You know? That's not done. Men, just keep the Sikha just sort of, you know, straight and tied, but straight. And don't, you know, braid it and make it like fancy, that sort of thing. Women, it is preferable for women to keep long hair tied behind. At least that's very traditional. Srimati Radharani has long hair, very long. It reaches right down her back, like right down her back. And she ties it in one braid. In one braid she ties it to keep it together. Okay, let's see if I have any other little, oh yes. This is addressed to the men. Prabhupada talked about his disciples, male disciples, keeping hair, and he didn't like it. Srila Prabhupada, my disciples do not keep so many hair. Devotee, male devotee. Many of your disciples do. Prabhupada, no, I don't accept that. You just this one circle a little, but those who are keeping big hairs, they are rejected from my disciples. Now, in the same conversation, Prabhupada, I do not accept you because you're keeping hair. Devotee, same devotee, I didn't know that. Prabhupada, yes. Devotee, you never told me that in Hawaii. Prabhupada, now I say, I'll repeat, that anyone who's keeping long hair, he's no more my disciple. Devotee, all right. Prabhupada, this is the first condition. So now here's something different. Prabhupada, either writing or speaking to a devotee who had left but then came back, and came back with long hair. So you have returned, I think it must be a letter, but now you must be very careful not to become rubbish. If you're keeping long hairs, they must be removed. All of my disciples must be clean shaved. Even anyone who stays with us must be clean shaved. They can visit if they have hair, but anyone who wants to remain with us must be clean shaved. Gentlemen, Okay. Yeah. You know, in some of the Gaudiya Mat groups, or many of them, they have practice, or a sort of habit even, of just only shaving once a month. But Prabhupada did not appreciate that, and did not do that, and did not teach to do it. Yeah. The men generally every week or every 2 weeks. Okay, next is number 3, Kanti Mala, Tulsi neck beads. All the devotees who are initiated must wear Kanti Mala, and all the devotees who are not initiated must also wear Kanti Mala. At least 2 or 3 rounds. That's not correct. At least 3. At least 3. And Prabhupada said Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would wear 5 rounds. But those who are not initiated, they can wear 1 round or 2. But generally 1, but 2 is also possible. But initiated should wear at least 3 rounds. The mala should be wrapped around the base of the throat and should be clearly visible. Yes. And then, well, there's some on the next page, sort of further discussion. Tulsi beads, yeah, okay, the second paragraph on the next page. They indicate a devotee's surrender to the Lord. Actually, Prabhupada said, very specifically and on a number of occasions, our neck beads are our dog collar, that we are Krishna's dogs. And every, dog which has a civilized master has a collar. Yeah. Then it's advisable not to wear beads if one is not following the 4 regulative principles. This is a speculation. Some devotees also wear other kinds of auspicious malas, either made of tulsi beads, lotus seeds, rope from Jagannath Surat, or silk pavitras, while performing puja, japa, or other sacred functions. These should be removed when bathing or leaving the temple or house while going to the toilet. I mean, generally we should just wear tulsi beads. And, even these beads you get, they're decorative. There's tulsi, but there's silver, like decorative silver things. It's not really so good to wear them on a regular basis. So, yeah, the neck beads, it's a fact, they protect us from inauspiciousness. And Lord Yamaraj tells the Yamadutas that if you ever see someone wearing tulsi neck beads, leave them. Just don't approach them. So their tulsi neck beads are extremely auspicious and protective, because after all, tulsi is so sacred that we do not even put her leaves or manjaris, the seed sort of things, on Srimati Radharani. Yeah. Unless it's maha coming from having been worn by Krishna. So we must know that tulsi is just super sacred. Is just super completely sacred. Yeah. And they give protection. Yes. Upon seeing the Tulsi Mala, the Yamadutas flee like leaves scattered by the wind. Okay. I mean, there's been a debate for years. Should we, sell Tulsi neck beads to the people, like back in the hippie days? Because you can get these Tulsi beads, they're kind of a little decorative. And I would say I was not aware of there being real conclusions on that subject. Right. So, okay. Next we go on to number 4, moustache and beard. Well, we don't. We don't. Let's just read what is said here. Devotees who are initiated or preparing to be initiated should not have a moustache or a beard. It may be noted, however, that in some Vaishnava mats, means not ISKCON, men shave their face and head once a fortnight or on the full moon day, and in Chaturmasya period they do not shave at all. But our standard is to shave on a regular basis. Yeah. And they say with the odd exception of yatras. I mean, like big pilgrimages, but I don't know about that. And we got a couple of points here. Let's just have a look. What do we... Oh, yeah. When in, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, Sanatana Goswami arrives at the house of Chandrasekhar, having just with great difficulty escaped from the Nawab, Hussain Shah. And when Sanatana Goswami arrived, well, he had been living according to the sort of, you could say, social norms of Muslim society. So he was wearing Muslim-style clothes, and his hair and beard was Muslim-style. And if you know anything about these things, if you know much about these things, Muslim men, staunch Muslim men, they keep a beard but no moustache. It's a fact. So that's what Sanatana Goswami looked like. He looked like a Muslim, basically, externally. And he'd been on the run for days. So he wasn't very clean. He wasn't clean. I mean, he looked sort of a bit bedraggled even. And he arrived in front of Chandrasekhar Acharya's house in, Prayag or Allahabad, Prayag, I think. And Lord Chaitanya said to Chandrasekhar, go outside. There is a Vaishnava there. Invite him in. So Chandrasekhar went outside and saw Sanatana Goswami, who was dressed as a Muslim and had the telltale beard of a Muslim. And he just looked pretty sort of, tired and just not very presentable at all. So Chandrasekhar, he looked around, saw Sanatana Goswami, came back in and said, my Lord, there's no There's no Vaishnav there. And Lord Chaitanya asked, is there anyone out there? And Chandrasekhar said, well, there's just one Muslim mendicant. And then Lord Chaitanya, if I remember correctly, went outside with Chandrasekhar. And there was Sanatana Goswami. And to Chandrasekhar's great surprise, Lord Chaitanya just went straight up to him and embraced him, Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami embraced the Lord, and they're just holding each other tightly in embrace and crying in ecstasy. And Chandrasekhar was completely astonished. He couldn't understand this initially, because he thought, why is the Lord embracing a Muslim and expressing so much feeling? So then after they had embraced, just like immediately, Lord Chaitanya spoke to Chandrasekhar. First of all, you get him to a barber and have him cleansed of his beard and hair, which has grown for so many days. Let him become a gentleman. The Lord said, let him become a gentleman. Just get him to a barber and clean shaven. And this is quoting Prabhupada. According to the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya, they keep themselves clean shaven. And only single instances there, Advaita Prabhu, he had his beard. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never asked him to cleanse. Because one reason is that Advaita Prabhu was contemporary of Lord Chaitanya's father. So Lord Chaitanya did not like to dictate to him. He was senior, like a full generation senior. But otherwise, Prabhupada says, all his disciples, all of Lord Chaitanya's disciples, they were clean shaven. And here's a couple of quotes from Srila Prabhupada on the subject. There are so many things to victimize over the living entities in Kali Yuga. And one of the items is that he will take it that I have become very, very beautiful, attractive by keeping long hair, kesha. That is already stated there. You are victimized by that Kali Yuga, that's all. No explaining. Our trademark is clean shaven. We are known as shaven hair. Why should you be victimized? You are known as shaven hair. Are you not? They say that. Hare Krishna people, shaven hair. And then another one. Lord Chaitanya may have had long hair in his early Grihastha life, but that does not mean that we should imitate Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya also had shaven head in Sikha. That was later. The important thing is that we must follow the regulative guidelines as laid down by great saints and acharyas in our line. And so it is recommended that we wear clean-shaven heads. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. I could go on to the next section. We've only got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Any comments or questions? Yes. Give him the microphone. Just a moment. Right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I read recently that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, when he was doing Chaturmas, he specifically told the disciples to take a picture of him to show that he did Chaturmasya with his head shaved. I'm not shaving his head and his beard and things. If somebody is doing Chaturmasya within our ISKCON, would they follow the same thing? Not shaving?
Yeah, that's a special thing. I don't know if he asked for a photo to be taken. Maybe he did, but I'm not aware. I've not read that. Maybe he did. But yeah, he would follow very austere Chaturmasya. No cutting hair, no shaving, no cutting fingernails. Yeah. And in ISKCON, you said, in ISKCON, we don't really, I don't know when was the last time I saw a devotee, an ISKCON devotee, who is doing like full Chaturmasya. I can't remember. I don't think I've ever seen. Well, I have seen actually. But, I think it's extremely rare because it's extremely austere. And it's not really so spiritual. It's kind of mixed. I've mentioned a while ago, months, that Bhavananda observed like full Chaturmasya for 4 months. I mean, just the full thing. And then he got arrested. It's a long story, but he got arrested. But then he became famous. The sadhu, the foreign sadhu, who they've arrested for no good reason, he became famous. He was in all the newspapers in India. And Prabhupada said, "You have become famous because you did Chaturmasya." So it's a mixed thing. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada did not do it. And even, we have in the Chaturmasya period that each month there's a certain type of foodstuff which it's said to abstain from, right? Urad dal, whatever, milk, yogurt, these things. Prabhupada didn't observe that. There's a story, Prabhupada, during one Chaturmasya period, Prabhupada was having lunch or going to have lunch, and one of the devotees who was more into this type of thing saw some spinach or urad dal, or depending on what month it was, and said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, but we're not meant to take that because it's Chaturmasya." And Srila Prabhupada responded, "Oh, do you follow that?" He didn't bother. I wouldn't advise you to. I don't think you're the right sort of person for full Chaturmasya. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.